we are all immigrants. You know, if you do your ancestry thing, and you don't even need to do it, you just, you know, you look where your parents came from and your great-grandparents and so forth. The entire planet is full of immigrants. I have this book, it's called 6,000 Years of the World, and it shows how countries come and go and how populations shift and move around, and we're always going to be immigrants. We're always going to be moving around. We move, sometimes we move tragically for war, sometimes we move for opportunity, sometimes we move because our families move. So when I came to Quebec, you know, and having lived in very straight places, you know, like in Ontario or like in Princeton and New Jersey, where people say hello and it's the hand. Here they pretty much grab you. I remember when I started doing voiceover work, and you'd walk into a studio, a producer and director and technician, and everybody's kissing. I thought, I'm
staying.
Family.
That's nice. So, Eramelinda, awesome to have you here. Always glad to see you, always happy. So I know you very well, but others probably don't yet. So please present yourself.
Well, my name is Eramelinda Boquer, and I'm a broadcast veteran of over 40 years working in radio, television, film, animations, commercial production, documentaries. And over the past 20 years or so, I started to shift to communications, to work in publishing, marketing, advertising, and most recently, I started teaching at Champlain College, St. Lambert, where I teach communications, which I love because most of my students are new Canadians. And I also teach people privately how to speak to present their best selves.
So, which means that you are an expert in communication, because all your life, even in television and radio and everything, it was all about communication, right?
Yep.
So, what would be your main piece of advice to immigrants regarding communication?
Well, first of all, don't think of yourself as an immigrant, because we're all immigrants. We are all from someplace else. Literally, our parents came, there's first new generation. But when you come, you're now moving. You're now part of the community. You're now part, wherever you are, you become part of a community. So feel competent, feel strong, you know, don't be afraid to learn a new language and be shy. You can take lots of free language courses online. I learned French when I moved to Quebec. Je parle pas un mot de français. I learned French by watching children's programs, reading French cartoon books, but I also immersed myself in the culture. I went to French theater. I went out with French, well, actually, I started working broadcasting right away, but when you work with people and you're working in a new community, ask them about themselves in all communications, and especially when you're new to the community, whether it's a new job, a new country, a new city. Listen to people. Get advice from them. Find out about their community and make it your community. That is the best way. And don't be shy, because there are people who speak French perfectly who are shy to speak French.
Absolutely. So what I often see is actually immigrants would say it's very hard to become friends with, let's say, Quebecers. So your suggestion that is to be more involved in everything that is happening in the community, right? And ask questions. And this is probably the way to become friends with them and to know their culture and to know how they live and their way of thinking. And then the integration happens faster, right?
Absolutely. The more you learn about the music, the food, the dancing, the theater, the literature, and also, too, when I first moved here, j'ai parlé français comme ça. C'était très dégueulasse, you know? But they were like, oh, it's so cute. You make the effort. We like you try, you know? It was like, it was wonderful. Everywhere you go, and once again, it's not just the immigrant experience, but it's a matter of getting to know people and listening a lot, ask questions and listen, and integrate yourself. Right now, because of COVID, of course, we can't go to movie and theaters, but there's a lot of great French theater. There's a lot of great French TV. Start watching French TV programs. And a lot of our students at the college come from different countries, but they work with a lot of Quebecers. And as I said earlier, ask questions, immerse yourself. You know, it's like me too. When I first came here, I didn't move to the West Island, which is very Anglo. I was like right into Balconville. Michel Tremblay, who's a French playwright, land on Fabre. Very, very French Canadian.
Yeah.
And I had a French Canadian roommate who didn't speak English. And we had a lot of laughs because you make a lot of mistakes. But the more you try, the more you open up and make effort. And just think you're invulnerable. Nothing's going to hurt you if you mispronounce a word. Nothing's going to go wrong if you ask a question.
Absolutely. It just needs a little bit of self-esteem and
Yeah.
self-confidence, right?
And also get involved in a community group. It's a little harder right now, but when I first came here, I volunteered a lot with food banks and women's shelters. What a great way to get to know people.
Absolutely. That's right. Now, when you compare how immigrants are welcomed here now and you compare the time when your mom was an immigrant in Canada.
Well, it's very different. You know, my
In what way?
mom was Spanish but born in the Philippines, and we also we have Filipino blood in her. So it was interesting. Though she looked, she was mestiza. Everyone would look at her and think, "Oh, well, there's just a North American, right?" But when she opened her mouth, she spoke English with a Spanish and Filipino accent. And she was just different. She came from a family that had traveled around the world, and when she first came here, people treated her oddly. You know, when they did this was in the 50s and 60s, so right after the war. So there was a big influx of immigrants, but still, it's just that weird thing. The immigrants that always come before, and especially during that period, it's sort of, you look at the new people, it's like, well, hey, we're here now, and what are you doing here? She was not allowed to work in theater because of her accent. You know, when we had school nights where, you know, your parents would do a thing, you know, North American parents would do square dances. My mom did this very intricate Filipino dance called the titty cling. And as a child, I thought that was cool, but all my friends thought that she was weird and therefore thought I was weird, and I was ostracized. And
Because of that.
so even though I'm a first generation, I was born in the States, but then moved to Canada,
Right.
I was still experiencing the bad immigration experience because of the way my mother was treated. Now I find it's not the same at all.
How is it different?
Well, it's like when you and I met, you know, like now we met at Champlain College where we're international. We've got people from everywhere, and instead of different being bad, it's like, you know, you hear someone's accent, oh, you're Ukrainian, oh, that's so cool, I went to the Ukrainian festival, I loved it. Oh, you're from the Congo, you know, that's really cool, what's life like there? There is still prejudice, but we all understand that prejudice actually has little to do with race or religion or ethnic background or sexuality. It comes from people being insecure,
And ignorant, probably?
uneducated, unenlightened. And you know, most of the racist groups, it's kind of interesting. They all sort of huddle together. And I'm sure if you were to ask them somewhere in their life, something went bad. So they felt a need to be with a group of people that was going to be bad to other people. But now, yes, we have a long way to go. But, you know, in my experience in North America, too, we saw a lot of influxes of different groups. Like after the Vietnam War, we had a lot of Vietnamese. They were called the boat people because they escaped from Vietnam in boats. So they came and they settled here. So there was that. And then in Montreal, we had a great influx of Sikhs coming in here. Actually, every year at Sun Youth, which is a food bank, they always give 20,000 items of food to say thank you. A few years ago, we had a huge influx of Syrian refugees. I actually kind of hate the word immigrants and refugees because
What word would you use?
new citizens,
New citizen.
new neighbors, just new neighbors, because that really in reality is, but I find it's better now also too because of the internet. When we were growing up, you'd learn about Vietnam or in National Geographic magazine,
Right.
or if you were lucky, a documentary on television, and even then those were pretty bad, you know.
So yes, with lots of information, people, you think, became more open to like differences, right?
Yeah, and I also think too that when I first moved here, I heard from a lot of Quebecers. They used to complain, Anglophones come here, whether it's from the States or other parts of Canada, and they would immediately go to go live in the West Island or in Westmount in very English communities. And there's been complaints of other communities. You could say, oh, well, there's so many Italians in St. Leonard, but that's sort of an older thing. That happened a while ago. I do believe now that, well, yes, it's true, some communities, you could go to certain areas and see. I think the best way for a new Canadian immigrant to come and be welcome here is move into a neighborhood that is outside your comfort zone. Outside your comfort zone is great.
Don't you think that new immigrants are already stressed because they feel insecure, because everything is new to them, and then living in an environment, in a quartier that is totally strange would add to their level of stress?
Well, I guess it depends on what kind of a person you are. I took a different path. Though I did, when I moved here, I did join the American Women's Club in Montreal. And to go to maybe events. It's actually the oldest service organization in Quebec. It's over 100 years old, but it was just meant to help American women. But it wasn't to be only with American women. The club was built to have things like book clubs and parent and kid clubs and movie clubs. But we also integrated ourselves by doing things for our community. But a short answer to your question is, when you move, yes, maybe, who knows, maybe your circumstance will have you moving in with a relative in a quartier that is from wherever you're from Italy, from Moldavia, from Ukraine. But eventually, you have to go outside, because the power comes when you just let yourself go and say, I'm going to experience this, and I'm not going to worry about the way I speak French. I'm not going to worry about offending people. Because have you noticed too that confident people, no matter where they're from, they attract more people?
Yeah.
If you have an attitude where, if you're shy, or we teach this a lot in communications, but if you're shy, don't make eye contact, and you and I are not going to work together and not look at each other in the eye. And also too, because if you're one of these people who's always people think either you're not listening or you're lying or there's a problem with you, I think that the best way to integrate is to feel comfortable in yourself, and because everything actually boils down to psychology.
Absolutely. So
right?
This is the core of everything,
Yes.
right then? So psychologically, what would help people in their integration process?
Well, right now, I just say this, with the students that I'm working with right now, we're doing all our classes online and Zoom. But I would say, if you're a new Canadian and you're studying at a college and studying in Zoom, find yourself a French-Canadian study partner. And you can work together, like a lot of our students do. They're studying computer stuff that is way beyond me right now. They were doing networking last week. I know that has something to do with connecting computers. But, so let's say, for me, if I was taking that class, I would find a Quebecois study partner. Because
instead of somebody from your culture,
yeah, from my country. Because I would want to, I know that while we work together on our project, that I would say, hey, so, I hear a lot about this poutine, so what's that like, and where's the best poutine in the city? Or what's your favorite show? Maybe I'll try and find it because I can watch it with subtitles. That's another thing too, is watching films with subtitles also helps to integrate, because you hear the words, but after a while it starts to bleed in. But you can't integrate into a new culture without integrating into a new culture. And you can't have an attitude, and it's the same thing, like a new kid from another school going, when we were growing up and your families would move and you'd switch schools, and all of a sudden you're the weird new kid. And I knew about that, because once again, I had that whole experience. Oh, your mother's from the Philippines and you're weird, blah, 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 whatever. The most important thing is I learned that when I just stopped being, yep, My mother's Spanish and from the Philippines.
You accept it, and
I
then
ex-
others do.
Yeah, and I could tell you some really cool stuff about the Philippines. I could tell you some awesome stuff about World War II and how my mother's dog saved her from some invaders in her house. You know? But and also too, you can't, and this goes for everybody, never have a sense of victimhood. Don't walk around going, well, you know, because I'm from somewhere else, people are automatically not going to like me. No, you have to, once again, it's psychology. You have to say, you know what? I'm good. I'm a good me, you know, and I'm always going to be a better me.
Good enough, right?
Oh, no,
Already.
not just good enough. Good.
Good.
It's like saying, oh, I'm just this. No, you're this. I'm not just good enough. I'm good. And have pride in yourself. And, you know, culture is a fabric. You may come here from the Congo. You may come here from Barcelona. But slowly but surely, if you're open and you're confident, and it's a fake it till you make it, because I always wasn't this confident. I used to be really shy. I know that's hard to believe, but it's true.
Don't
Shut
believe you.
up now. It's impossible. No, but it is true. I learned to be like this. I wasn't always like this because of my mother's bad immigration experience, and I experienced it because I was her daughter. I accepted sort of being put down in that, and then one day I woke up and went, why am I doing that? You know, if you are proud of yourself and who you are, and you work on yourself, and you know, like when I first moved here, c'est vrai, j'étais gênée de parler français parce que je sais, je fais beaucoup des erreurs. But the more you do it, and people will correct you, and they will appreciate you. It's like everything else. How did you make friends in college, right? You know, you were all from different cities and different schools and so forth and so on, but you presented yourself. And I think this is what we have to do too, is all of us, including, you know, I know I look pretty white bread, but I'm like about 10 cultures running through me, from Spanish to Filipino to Chinese. Like it's true. I did the whole ancestry thing.
And how do you feel yourself as a mixture of all of it?
I feel like I'm a citizen of the world. I don't feel I'm strictly anything. I think I'm just strictly Eramelinda.
Awesome.
And you know, each one of us comes with our own way of thinking in universe. And you have to be proud of that. And you're always going to be improving. But when you're a new Canadian, and for any new Canadians that are watching, I welcome you and I embrace you, because I know you're going to bring something really cool to our country. Because that's been the way of the world, right?
Yes.
You know, if we didn't accept other cultures, there's so many things we wouldn't have, you know? Marconi invented the radio. He was Italian. Thank you, Italians. You know, it's all about learning to be comfortable, learning to be good in your skin. Because at the end of the day, we are all exactly the same. You know, we want a good life. We want to be happy. We want to be healthy. We want our family and friends, and we want to have people around us to celebrate, to enjoy, and to exchange.
Awesome. Thank you on this note, Eramelinda. Really, I'm super grateful. I hope that all your tips that you gave today, I asked for only one, but we actually received hundreds probably. So I hope they will be helpful